chosen one. Someone who once categorized you as manageable has just hit a wall of terrifying reality. They spent years judging you by the limited version they created in their minds, but the veil has finally been lifted. The truth is out. They finally saw your real resume. Now they're asking, who were we messing with? This reckoning is happening entirely in your favor, proving you were always out of their league. This does not begin today. It does not begin with the resume, or with the panic spreading across someone's face right now. It begins the moment you walked into an environment that was fundamentally too small for you and chose to stay anyway. You assessed everything immediately. You felt the ceiling the moment you arrived. You understood early on that the people around you had already decided who you were before you ever opened your mouth. They looked at you and identified something they considered manageable. They saw someone they believed was safe to categorize, someone who would slot in below them without demanding recalibration, without creating friction, without making them confront the particular discomfort of standing next to someone who outclasses them in every direction. So they built you a box. And here is the first thing you need to understand about that box, because it is going to matter enormously as this unfolds. The box was never about you. It was a management tool for their own fear. You were simply the thing they could not name clearly, and the box was how they handled what they could not name. You did something that most people would never do in that position. You did not fight the box. You did not exhaust yourself trying to prove your worth to people who had already decided not to see it. You did something far more powerful. You let them keep the box, and you kept building. Remember that word, building, because this entire arc is the account of what was being constructed while they were busy labeling. Two parallel realities were running at the same time. Their reality held the belief that they had you contained. Your reality was one where you were becoming something they had no framework to imagine. Both realities could not coexist forever, and you always knew which one would outlast the other. You were not wandering or stumbling through something that did not fit. You walked in with full clarity about what you were doing and exactly why. You made a calculated decision to be present in a space that underestimated you, because that space contained something you needed: access, intelligence, a specific kind of experience. You were extracting value from an environment that believed it was the one doing the managing. That is not endurance. That is strategy, at a level your opponents almost never detect until it is far too late. Now the gap begins to open. The distance between what they believed and what was actually true starts widening every single day. And you need to feel this part, not just hear it, because what happened to you during this season is real, and it deserves to be named without softening. They interrupted you. You were speaking mid-sentence, mid-point, delivering something strategic and grounded in knowledge they did not know you possessed, and they simply talked right over it. Your words dissolved into the air like they meant nothing. The entire space let it happen. You stopped. You sat back, and there was an expression on your face that nobody in that space could decode. They read it as defeat. They were wrong. Hold on to that expression, because it is going to mean something by the time this is over. They questioned your qualifications, to your face, with confidence they had not earned. They sat across from you with a fraction of your experience, operating well below your actual floor, and asked out loud whether you were prepared, whether you were the right fit, whether you had the background to be trusted with what they were guarding. And what they were guarding was a task smaller than work you had already completed at far more distinguished organizations, at far greater scale, long before you ever crossed paths with them. You received their doubt without argument. You let them reassign the work. You watched the person they chose instead struggle through every phase of something you would have moved through without breaking stride. When they came to you for help, you gave it freely, no speech, no correction, no moment of satisfaction performed for anyone watching. You simply helped, and you kept moving. They took your ideas. It needs to be said plainly. You offered a solution in a casual exchange, something that came naturally to you, the way real insight always sounds effortless when it originates from genuine depth. They nodded and said something non-committal, and not long after, they were standing at the front of a formal setting, delivering your exact solution to applause, while you sat watching your own thinking get credited to someone who could not have produced it independently. They received the recognition, they received the elevation, they received the professional capital that your mind generated, and you said nothing. You moved on and produced more before the week was finished. They excluded you. You were left off the gatherings, removed from the projects, passed over for the advancements that landed on people with a fraction of your record. The critical conversations happened without your presence, about subjects you understood more deeply than anyone in them. They made you feel the particular quiet ache of invisibility, the kind that does not announce itself but slowly and steadily suggests that maybe you are less real than you believed. Every single one of those moments, the interruptions, the qualification questions, the credit theft, the exclusions, was not random. They were all symptoms of the same underlying condition, fear. Something about you registered with them at a frequency their language could not fully articulate. So they managed it, the only way they knew how. They applied pressure, they kept the lid on, and they told themselves that was called leadership. What they could not see was what you were doing on the other side of that pressure. Your resume was being written the entire time, line by line, credential by credential, in spaces they could not access, during hours they could not monitor, through connections they had never been in a position to make. You were accumulating something that had no relationship to the ceiling they believed you were under, because you were building an entirely different kind of structure, one without a ceiling at all. If this message aligned with your purpose, hype this video so fellow chosen ones can find their confirmation. While they were gatekeeping things that were already beneath your level, you were receiving invitations from directions they did not know existed. Opportunities arrived through networks they had never reached. Recognition came from institutions operating at standards that were leagues above anything that environment could have offered you. The very people who believed they controlled your access were entirely irrelevant to the access that actually mattered. They were guarding an entrance you had already stopped using. The pressure they applied was building towards something that the container was not built to hold. You could feel it coming, and so on some level, could they, even if they could not name what they were sensing, while they explained things to you that you had already surpassed before they encountered them at the introductory level, you were sitting with knowledge that would have restructured the entire dynamic of every shared interaction if you had chosen to release it. You were carrying credentials they had never thought to ask about. You were connected to people whose names would have changed the posture of every exchange. You were operating simultaneously in worlds they had no access to, worlds where your name carried weight, worlds where you were not the one being managed, but the one others were trying to position themselves near, and you disclosed none of it. This is the quality that separates chosen ones from everyone else. It is not the gifts alone, it is not the range alone, it is not the credentials alone, it is the knowing of when to reveal, it is the understanding that your power is not diminished by staying quiet. Silence is not absence, patience is not passivity. The one who keeps the fire internal is not less formidable than the one who ignites everything at once. In fact, the one who stays quiet is more formidable, because no one can prepare for what they cannot see approaching. You let them maintain their narrative. You let them pass the box around like evidence of their own cleverness. You let them feel the satisfaction of having categorized you, because you understood something about how truth operates that they have yet to learn. Containment is always temporary. The moment truth escapes, and it always escapes, the contrast between what was claimed and what was real is directly proportional to how long the false claim was maintained. They maintained their claim for a long time, which means the contrast was always going to be devastating. The quiet was not passive. Every single day, you were making deliberate decisions about what to share, what to withhold, when to advance, and when to wait. You were operating several moves ahead of people who could not see the full scope of what was being played. That kind of strategic intelligence is not taught anywhere. It belongs to the chosen one, the way a native language belongs to its speaker, not learned, simply known. Your resume was growing, your network was deepening, your recognition was accumulating. The real version of you was becoming so fully realized that when the truth finally surfaced, the gap between it and their constructed version of you was not a surprise, it was an indictment. And the ones who had worked hardest to maintain the false version were going to feel that indictment the most. The lid was always going to come off. The only question was when. It is coming off right now. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Someone pulled up your resume, maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of spite, maybe by pure accident. The reason is irrelevant. What matters is what happened the moment they started reading. They began at the top, education. They expected something standard, respectable but containable, nothing that should threaten the version of you they had carefully constructed. What they encountered instead was a record that reads like a formal declaration of excellence. Your credentials come from institutions that appear in conversations they have never been part of. Your distinctions come from programs whose standards make their own academic path look like an open door. Your certifications required years of sustained exceptional performance to earn. Your academic honors confirm that you were not simply present in those environments, you were the benchmark that everyone else was measured against. They scrolled down, hoping the next section would offer them some equilibrium. It didn't. The experience section arrived, and what they saw was a career that moved across industries with the ease of someone who never asked permission from any single field. You led substantial teams. You oversaw budgets at scales they cannot casually imagine. You launched products and initiatives that people engage with daily without ever knowing your name. You consulted for organizations they regard with reverence from a careful distance. You addressed audiences on platforms where people invested significantly just to be in the same space as you. Your research shifted how entire industries approach their own work, and you participated in high-stakes conversations, not as an observer, not as someone brought in briefly and sent back out, but as a genuine contributor to decisions that carried real consequence. All of it was unfolding while they were busy managing the box. Then they reached the skills section, and something shifted in how they were holding the device. Because what they encountered there was not a list of competencies. It was an indictment of every limit they had projected onto you. You speak languages they have never studied. You operate systems they have no experience with. You hold psychology, economics, technology, and human behavior in a single coherent perspective, not as a practiced exercise, but as a natural function of how your mind works. You carry mastery across disciplines that specialists spend entire careers trying to reach in just one. The achievements section is where something actually broke. Achievements are not self-reported impressions. They come with institutional names attached, with standards attached, with third-party validation that cannot be quietly revised in a private conversation. And what they were reading was a catalogue of institutions that had looked at your work and stated clearly, with their full credibility behind it, that you are extraordinary. Your recognition comes from organizations they have only seen referenced in places they aspire to reach. Your distinctions came with ceremonies. You created intellectual property that governing bodies agreed was original and valuable enough to protect under law. You contributed to publications that require institutional standing to access. You received invitations to platforms they will never be offered. You appeared in media they consume every morning without ever imagining they would see your name inside it. Then they reached the network section. This is the one that will follow them into the night. Your network is not a list of professional contacts. It is a registry of people who shape real things. The names in it are ones your former dismissers encounter in industry reports, on stages, and in positions of authority they have spent years trying to approach. You have moved alongside people who make decisions that alter entire sectors. You have built with people who are currently constructing what comes next. You have references who could change the professional trajectory of anyone with a single conversation. And sitting now with the full weight of what they have read, a calculation runs through their mind. You have access to those people, and those people, for all they know, already know your name in a context that involves exactly how you were treated. That calculation does not resolve in their favor. Every assumption they made collapses in sequence. This is not simple embarrassment. This is an existential event. This is the discovery that the protagonist of the situation they believed themselves to be narrating was never them, it was always you. The mind does something involuntary when the foundation of a reality it believed in gives way. It goes backward. It pulls everything up and replays each memory against the backdrop of what it now knows to be true. Every moment they talked over you is being examined now with completely different understanding. They can see themselves leaning into your sentence and replacing it with their own. They can see the expression on your face when you stopped. That expression, the one they could not read at the time, they are reading it now. That was not defeat. That was not embarrassment or insecurity. That was the restraint of someone who could have shifted the weight of that entire exchange with a single disclosed credential and chose not to. You let them have the moment, not because you lacked anything to say, but because you had everything to say and zero need to say it there. The moment they questioned your readiness is landing with its full absurdity now. They can feel the specific weight of having sat across from you with a fraction of your experience, asking whether you were prepared. They redirected the work to someone else. That person struggled. You helped when asked. You never once produced the evidence that the assignment they deemed you unqualified for was a warm-up compared to what you had already executed elsewhere. You simply helped and kept building. The stolen idea sits differently in their memory now. They remember the applause. They remember presenting your thinking in a formal setting, as if it had originated in their own mind. And now they are holding documentation that proves the mind they borrowed from does not even register the loss, because a mind that generates at your frequency produces continuously. You were already far ahead before the last sound of that applause faded. They took a single cup of water from a source that does not run dry, and now they are standing there holding the cup, understanding for the first time the scale of what they were drawing from. What they are also revisiting now are the smaller moments, the ones that seemed insignificant at the time, the sigh when you made a point, the way your suggestions were bypassed in favor of someone else's, the tone in their voice that communicated, without words, that you were present but not particularly important. Those moments are arriving now, multiplied by everything they just read, and the accumulated weight of all of them at once is not a comfortable place to sit. They built their self-concept on a set of beliefs, the belief that they were capable, that they were the sharper one in most exchanges, that the positions they occupied were earned through genuine merit, that the people they placed below them were there for defensible reasons. Your resume has not just challenged those beliefs, it has demolished the foundation all of them were resting on. The damage control calculation is running now, and the variables refuse to cooperate. Do you remember how they treated you? Almost certainly. Do you care? Unclear, and that lack of clarity is terrifying to them. Are you someone who lets these things go? Unknown. Does your network know their names in an unflattering context? Unknown. Are consequences already in motion in spaces they cannot access? Unknown. The unknowns are multiplying, and there is no way to resolve any of them without revealing the guilt that produced them. That is the real punishment, not a confrontation, not a public exposure, just the unbearable, unresolvable weight of not knowing. Your silence is doing something that no direct action could accomplish. Silence from someone with your documented capacity creates open space, and open space fills with imagination. Their imagination, running on incomplete information and unprocessed guilt, is generating scenarios far worse than anything you are actually planning. They are constructing their own consequence, and you have not had to lift a single finger to help them do it. Here is what else is happening inside them that rarely gets discussed. Grief. Not grief for you. Grief for the version of reality they inhabited comfortably while all of this was unfolding around them. That version no longer exists. The confidence with which they made decisions about you, the ease of assigning you to a lesser category, the satisfaction of feeling superior in exchanges they were never actually winning, all of it is being replaced by the understanding that their confidence was unfounded, their ease was ignorance, and their satisfaction was built on a comparison that was never accurate. That kind of grief does not have a clean exit, it stays, and processing it requires sitting with who they actually are, completely independent of how they managed you. That confrontation with the self is one most people spend their entire lives engineering ways to avoid. The universe is correcting its own ledger, and it is doing so without requiring a single thing from you. Just the resume, just the truth, just the inevitable arrival of what was always real. Consider how much energy they spent on you. Every dismissal required a decision. Every exclusion required a justification. Every label required reinforcement. Every time they felt your presence and had to manage the discomfort it created, that was energy leaving their body and going toward the maintenance of a fiction. They were working harder than you were, and every bit of that effort was directed at the wrong objective. While they were spending their resources on the constructed version of you, you were directing yours toward the only thing that was ever going to matter, the actual work, the actual accumulation of credentials, capacity, connections and proof that now sits in a document they cannot look away from. They were playing a limited game, you were playing a different one entirely. And the only reason they did not realize a different game was being played is that you never disclosed the board. This is what chosen one energy actually looks like in practice. It is not performance, it is not urgency, it is not the desperate hunger for validation from people who had already decided not to grant it. It is just building quietly, completely, with the steady confidence of someone who understands that truth does not require assistance to arrive. It only requires time, and time has always been your ally. Do not step toward their comfort. Do not clarify. Do not offer the reassurance that would release some of the pressure they are currently sitting inside. The moment you move toward managing their feelings, you redirect energy away from your own forward motion. The resume did the work. The truth landed without your help. The reckoning is operating entirely on its own. Your only assignment is to continue being who you are, at the pace your actual life requires, in the spaces that were built for your full capacity. Their unraveling is not your concern. You have too much to build. They are asking it now, in the quiet of wherever they are sitting with your resume still visible on the screen. It is the question that gives this entire moment its title. Who were we messing with? And here is what makes this question so devastating. It is not rhetorical. They genuinely do not know the full answer. Your resume shows them what you have done, but it does not show them what you are thinking. It does not reveal your emotional state or your intentions. It does not tell them whether you are somewhere calm and unbothered, which is the truth, or whether you are somewhere planning a response they should be anticipating. It does not tell them whether the people in your network know their names in a context that is about to affect them. Your resume is a masterpiece of accomplishment, but from their vantage point, it is also a mystery. It is the visible portion of something much larger, and knowing that this much is visible makes them keenly aware that what they cannot see may be the most consequential part. They built that gap themselves. Every time they chose not to actually look at who was in front of them, every time they replaced the real version of you with the convenient version, they chose not to know you, and now they are living inside the consequence of not knowing. They cannot predict what someone with your range, your connections, and your documented record of extraordinary achievement is thinking about them right now. And that unpredictability, entirely self-created and entirely avoidable, is where all the fear lives. The answer, if they could receive it, is not what they are afraid of. You are not plotting. You are not mobilizing. You are doing what you have always done. You are building. You are operating at the level you were always meant to occupy. You are calm and completely unbothered. But they cannot hear that answer, and the not hearing is itself the consequence. Beneath the surface of their panic, there is a simpler and far more uncomfortable question forming, one they are not asking out loud, but cannot stop circling. Why did we not just pay attention? Why at any point before this moment did we not actually look? Why did we decide we already knew enough before gathering a single piece of real data? Why did we confuse our own comfort with their limitation? Those questions have no satisfying answers. The honest answer is that arrogance operates as a form of willful laziness. It is the decision to stop gathering information because you have already decided the outcome. They decided the outcome about you before conducting any real inquiry, and the resume is the invoice for that decision, arriving all at once, itemized in language that cannot be disputed. This is a permanent recalibration, not a temporary embarrassment. Once the reliability of your own judgment becomes suspect, every future assessment you make about anyone feels uncertain. You accomplished that, not through any direct action, but through the simple fact of existing at your full capacity, while they were too satisfied with their assumptions to notice. Let me reframe everything you have moved through to get here. The environments that tried to contain you, the seasons of building in silence while others congratulated themselves on their management of the situation, the patience that looked like compliance but was actually a calibrated choice to let truth operate on its own timeline. None of it was accidental, none of it was punishment, none of it was arbitrary difficulty placed in your path without purpose. It was all preparation. Every dismissal sharpened your discernment. Every exclusion built an independence that makes you impossible to control now. Every act of credit theft taught you that your value does not live in recognition. It regenerates faster than recognition can be removed. Every condescending exchange built the patience that now makes you genuinely formidable. Not the kind of formidable that explodes when provoked, the kind that simply keeps building until the dismissal becomes its own testimony to the dismisser's limitations. They believed they were restricting you. They were loading you. Every obstacle was weight that developed the capacity you now carry into every space you enter. Chosen ones are not produced in comfort. They are produced in the specific heat of being systematically underestimated by people who should have looked more carefully. That heat does not damage the chosen one. It reveals what is already there, and what was revealed in you has been tested, confirmed and documented in language so clear that even the people most committed to not seeing it are being forced to see it now. Nothing was wasted. Every closed door redirected your energy toward a space that was actually built for you. Every person who attempted to slow you contributed, without intending to the document now sitting on a screen, making people reckon with their own judgment. You did not arrive here in spite of what they put you through. You arrived through it, because chosen ones do not collapse under the weight of small people's fear. They carry the weight, build with it, and arrive with more capacity than anyone who was handed an easier path. This was never theirs to author. They positioned themselves as the ones determining what was possible for you, but they were never the architects. They were terrain, and you were always the one deciding how to move through it. The divine backing on your path is not abstract. It is visible in the actual sequence of what happened. Every access point they controlled that closed was followed by an opening somewhere they had no sight line into. Every withheld opportunity had its energy rerouted to a place where it could produce the kind of result that ends up documented on a resume that makes people question their own judgment. The structure of your path was not built by them. They occupied a few doorways in a structure far larger than they understood, and the levels they never had access to are precisely the ones your resume illuminates most clearly. That is not coincidence, that is design, and you were designed for something that was never contingent on their approval. You do nothing in their direction. That is the move. That is the answer that carries the most weight, and that they are least equipped to handle. You direct absolutely nothing toward them, and everything toward your own continued momentum. You do not confront. You do not announce anything. You do not perform a reveal, because the reveal has already happened without your involvement. You do not pursue acknowledgement, because you do not need it. You do not engage with the drama of their reckoning, because their reckoning is a footnote, a byproduct of what happens when a chosen one stays the course long enough for truth to catch up to the people who bet against it. Your silence right now carries more weight than any speech could. Silence from someone with your credentials, your network, your documented record of extraordinary output, occupies space. It settles into every rationalization they are attempting to construct. It says everything that needs to be said without producing a single word, and they cannot argue with it. They cannot negotiate around it. They can only sit inside it and feel the full weight of the structure they built around a fiction. What you do is accelerate. The energy that was previously divided between navigating their limitations and managing what you disclosed is now fully yours. Every space you enter as the complete version of yourself, not the carefully calibrated one, not the one trimmed to make smaller people comfortable, but the version the resume documents. That version shows up now, consistently and without apology. And when it shows up, people feel it before they can articulate it. They lean in, they make introductions, they open access, because full presence at your level is recognizable even before a single credential is named. You are a builder. You have always been a builder. The resume is simply the proof made visible. While their side of the equation is in free fall, something is happening on yours, and it is the more important event. You are being confirmed. Not by them. They lost the standing to confirm anything about you the moment they chose convenience over accuracy. You are being confirmed by the natural order of how truth operates. People who build with integrity and consistency do not remain invisible indefinitely. The build eventually reaches a scale that is impossible to keep contained. The light that was always present stops being dimmable. You are entering what comes next carrying something that no credential program issues and no institution can grant. You carry the authority of someone who was genuinely tested and did not collapse. You carry the credibility of someone who was dismissed and kept building without requiring anyone to witness the effort. You carry the rare, quietly devastating power of someone who has proven through lived experience that they do not need external permission to be extraordinary, because they already were, in seasons when no one was watching, in stretches when no one was celebrating, in the long middle section where the only audience for the work was the work itself. This is not the transformation from invisible to visible. This is the transformation from patient to unleashed. And those are entirely different things. The next space you walk into as this version, the full one, the one with the range and the network and the patience and the earned confidence of someone who has already absorbed the worst that small-minded people can produce and come out the other side with more than they started with. It is not arrogant. Arrogance is the confidence of people who believe they are exceptional without the evidence to support it, which is precisely what your dismissers had. What you carry is different. What you carry is accuracy. You carry confidence that is grounded in documentation, in repeated third-party confirmed evidence that you are precisely who you have always known yourself to be. That is not arrogance. That is simply being correct about yourself. And being correct about yourself, in a person who was systematically encouraged to doubt themselves, is one of the most powerful states a human being can occupy. Walk into what comes next accurately. Present yourself accurately from the beginning. Let others see the full version of you without the performance of making yourself smaller so that intimidated people can feel at ease. That season ended the moment the resume hit. You graduated from it without a ceremony, without applause, and without needing either. Walk accordingly. Right now, while they are paralyzed by the weight of your past, you are already building your future. That is the real answer to their question. That is who they were dealing with from the very first day. You are chosen. You are prepared. You are accurate. You are documented. You are immovable. The resume did not create you. It confirmed you. And what comes next will confirm you even further. The dragon is in open sky. They had every opportunity to see that before the reveal. They chose not to look. That was always their loss, not yours.